Welcome. You've now been locked into an episode of Dad Tough. Dad Tough. Bringing you your weekly injection of any and everything dad, husband, and man. So sit back, grab a beer, get rid of that pesky wife and kids, and get ready to dive into fatherhood, marriage, men's health, youth sports, and a bunch more nonsense coming straight to your screen, headphones, and into your hearts. Sometimes being a dad is tough, and sometimes you gotta be tough to be dad. Are you dad tough?
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dad Tough. I'm your host, Blake Brown, and today we got the privilege to sit with Mr. Casey Sowers, the director of the Fathers' Rights Movement. Man, that's a pretty big title, man, for a pretty big organization there.
Well, hopefully, we can make it even bigger, and I'll just go ahead and jump to it. And, my whole thoughts on this position is to work myself out of a job as quickly as possible and make the Fathers' Rights Movement not need to exist. I'm sure there'll always be a reason for it in some way or another, but when it comes to, equality in the family court system, my goal is to get there as quickly as possible. Absolutely,
man. That's something you just don't see is equality. Man, there's so many dads out here that just get the shaft, man.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and there is a period of time when, they had the Crusades and they had the Salem witch trials, they had slavery, and fundamentally they're all kind of the same. I mean, you look at the Salem witch trials, somebody's accused of being a witch, which don't exist, and they get, if you sink to the bottom of the lake, you're not a witch, but you're dead, So, they still use the term, witch hunt, but inequality is never going to come back in through history. It's never gonna raise its head again the same way as it has in the past.
Right.
And, I've said this many times, the, United Nations defines gender inequality, which has been talked about a lot from one angle, but gender inequality as a violation of human rights. So anything less than a rebuttable presumption of 50-50 in the family court system is a violation of human rights. Fundamentally no different than women's rights 100 years ago, the Civil Rights Act, any of it. Fundamentally, it's all the same, and I truly believe that this is the human rights issue of the 21st century. Our kids and grandkids will be looking in the history books and learning about this in school, in 50, 60 years from now.
That's great. That's great, man. I respect everything that y'all do, and for everybody that's going to be watching this that doesn't know exactly everything that y'all do. What made you start the Fathers' Rights Movement? Is it something?
No, I didn't start it. Well, let me correct that right now.
Correct that.
Yeah. So it was started by Thomas Fiddler. I started, I think, just as a humble Facebook page and gained a following, and found out there was a lot of other people, dealing with the same issues, and it kind of snowballed. And it started really back 2011, 2013. I think it became official, like an organ, starting to create form into an organization about 2013. And it was managed by a board up until October last year, at which point I was appointed as executive director. So I'm new to the game. I am the first executive director that the organization has had, just because operating from just a board, there were a lot of just stalemates in any decision making. So a lot of inactivity and just not, or one person would say one thing and another person on the board would say another. So it was a lot of confusion, a lack of, direction and leadership, or at least unified leadership.
Right. Okay. Well, let me rephrase that. What
Sure.
caused you to get involved?
Right. So I had my own custody issues, and I have a very unique, I think rather unique perspective. I won't say I'm the only one that has it, but um, a rather unique perspective compared to most, as I have raised my oldest daughter, who is soon to be 14, on my own since she was born, through active duty military, everything. And she's in a magnet program, gifted, advanced placement,
That's awesome.
all this stuff. And then when I, got married to my recent ex-wife, we had a child together and we split up. And then she went for 100% custody. And for 2.5 years, I had less than 0.5% access to my child who lived 2 miles away. And so, how can I raise a child from birth, a girl at that, and not be permitted more than 0.5% access to my other daughter?
Yeah.
So I had a very polarizing, point of view. And I said this on the show last week. And prior to both of those, I had a long distance relationship that it was one of those things. Well, we've been doing this long distance thing for a year. Why don't you come out here? We'll see how it works, or maybe we should just end it if we're not going to go make that leap. She had a son from a previous relationship, and I, helped potty train him and stuff like that. But it didn't work out, and she went home. Not bad, but we remained friends. Just it wasn't. I don't think she was comfortable leaving home and everything else. So we talked every week, and then I think it was in November. Kind of joking around, I said, "So what'd you get me for Christmas?" And she goes, "Nothing, but I got you something for March, and you can't return it and you can't exchange it." I'm like, what the hell? And her mom called or something, and she had to go. So I thought about it for a week until I talked to her again. I said, "What did you get me for March?" Because the only thing that I can think is that's 9 months since the last time we were together. And she said, "Well, you do math fast." And I was waiting for, yeah, right, ha ha. It never came. And I knew what we were, at this point, it's like 6 months, right? So I knew what we had been doing 6 months prior.
Right.
Like that specific week, I know exactly what we had been doing.
Right.
And so, I said, okay, well, let's do this and that. And I lived in Miami. She lived in New York. And I was in the military and just about I went from training to pre-mob and then to deployment. And I arrived back home in Miami from Oklahoma about 1 a.m. one night from training. And 3 a.m. I get a phone call from her sister. They're going to the hospital. She's in labor. Now I'm in Miami. She's in New York. So, less than 48 hours, I'm on a plane ride up there. I get up there. I'm there for a week. I named him, like all this stuff, right?
Right.
Went to pre-mob training, and then we got 10 days before actually deploying. So, of course, I went back up to New York again, and I put a bunch of money into her vehicle. I mean, the pistons on the brake calipers were cracked in half.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how worn down these brakes were. I was like, my kid's going to be in a safe car.
Right.
So I got new tires. I got, new brakes, everything fixed. But my parents were like, something's off that she didn't tell you anything about it for 6 months.
That's what I was kind of wondering.
Her reasoning was that I was deploying and she didn't want me to worry and all this kind of stuff. But my parents were like, something's off. So they weren't going to have anything to do with it unless I got a paternity test, which I did that 10 days before I went to Afghanistan. And I got the results. That was in like the last week of June. And I got the results about mid-August. Not mine.
Wow.
And for 8 months at that point, I knew for sure that I had a son. There was part relief because we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. She wanted to stay in New Jersey. I was in Miami, schools, I mean, everything, right? But also partly it was like having a child die at the same time, given that, I named him, I held him, all this kind of like, thought he was mine. So it went from that to raising a daughter on my own to not being able to see my daughter, my youngest daughter.
Right.
And in dealing with that, and those three perspectives, I said, you know what, this is probably doesn't occur very often. I said, maybe I should write a book. So I started writing a book and got into about chapter 2 and said, you know what, before I go any further, maybe I should do a little research before I start talking about something I don't know about. So I decided to see what type of support things there are for fathers and stuff like that in these situations. And it came across a few that, the website hadn't been updated since 2013. I called the number, it was disconnected, everything, and eventually stumbled across first Americans for Equal Shared Parenting. And then pretty much the same day, an advertisement for Secretary of the Board for the Fathers' Rights Movement. I applied for it. They said, sorry, it's full, but we're going to have a new position in like a few weeks. So, and I talked to the board and I said, well, is there anything I can do? Well, I'm waiting for you guys to open up this new position. And they said, well, we've been working on this phone app, trying to get a phone app, but we can't get the developer to, get back with us. So, well, this is right, in the heat of COVID, and I had actually just, they closed down my entire department for the university I worked at. So I said, well, I'm not doing anything else, so let me just give a shot. I had never built a phone app before. But I said, well, when do you want to launch it? He goes, 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So I had to figure out how to build a phone app and launch it in 3 weeks. And I did. We're working on a new one now. So that the license on that one has expired. We're working on a new one that is more integrated with our website and media that we have right now, rather than just a standalone app, because it's double the work and doesn't offer as much value and capability. So it came from that to, they opened up the position. It was the executive director position. I applied for it, and they called me up. They're like, after, I don't know, it was like, I think mid-October. And they're like, do you still want the position? And I was like, yeah, sure. They're like, do you know how much it pays? I said, it pays? I said, I was going to do it anyway, but yeah, sure. And I mean, the pay is not, it's not like a salary that anybody could live off of. It's just a little bit here and there. And actually, for the past 4 or 5 months, I haven't been taking any pay at all, as we've been restructuring and developing new streams of revenue. But that's what we've been working on. And the whole goal was to take it to the next level, to get corporate backing. And there were some things that had to be in place in order to start doing that, which was cleaning up, our media, Facebook and things like that, from nasty, because our Facebook, we had 100 different Facebook pages nearly.
Oh, wow.
And anybody could go in there and post anything they want. And whether we post it or not, it's on our page.
Right.
So we're kind of responsible for it.
All it
so
takes
we
is just one mad person to get on there and
there are tons.
Oh yeah,
of mad,
I've been there myself.
They're fully, right to be angry,
right,
but reacting out of that anger does not help them or help the cause.
Absolutely.
So, we transitioned from a different page for every state and different countries and regions down to groups, which is a little bit more private, but they can still, get together by region and stuff like that. And we have more control over the, what's actually posted, so that our messaging and branding is consistent, which was the first step. And now we have 3 shows that we run each week. I think we're adding a 4th one.
Yeah, I think so,
if I'm
man.
not mistaken.
Some like tough dad guy or something like that.
Something like that. I don't know.
He's a real tool.
So we've got that, and then this already, but I'm in a doctorate program,
right?
Just because I don't know what else to do with myself after I finished my MBA, and I'm actually doing my doctoral thesis research on. And a lot of people don't understand the angle on this when I say it, but doing research on the impact of corporations that the inequalities in the family court system has. And the purpose of that, and yes, a lot of people say, no, it needs to be about the children, and absolutely.
But it's not.
But if we can get, some power players, corporations, if we get Amazon to say, hey, we're losing hundreds of $1 millions a year in productivity because of the inequalities in the family court system, they're going to, switch or change where they're putting their lobbying dollars, their campaign money, contributions, things like that, to somebody that's going to vote in their favor to make things, better for them, as well as any other corporations, Dove, Target, anybody.
Right.
So over the summer, I ran an initial pilot study just to establish the baseline facts that custody disputes have an negative impact on mental and emotional health. Check. There is a correlation there. Obviously, we all know that.
Right.
But, when you get into the academic community, yes, we know that, but we're speculating. We have to prove it with data. So that's exactly what I did. The second thing is that, negatively impacted mental and emotional health has an impact on job performance. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, that seems pretty simple. Of course it does. Everybody knows that. But again, I have to establish it. I have to establish it for what I'm working towards. And so the third hypothesis was that the inequalities in the different states has a moderating effect on the mental and emotional health. So if you National Parents Organization has a report card that they created based on the equality of each state. So Kentucky is the first A state. I think Alabama is now the second full A state.
Oh,
If I'm
yeah?
not, yeah, Alabama, yeah.
Now explain the A
And
state to me. I'm a little new on some of this stuff there.
no, that's fine. So like I said, National Parents Organization created a report card, and they went through and studied every state's laws, and depending on how equal they were for equal shared parenting between mothers and fathers, they either got an A, B, C, D, E, or no E, but F, right? So like New York and Rhode Island, they get Fs. I'm in Florida. I think it's a C plus. Kentucky, Alabama, A's, Arizona, A minus. So depending on what state you're in and what grade it has, I'm saying my hypothesis is if you live in an A state, you're not going to have as much of an impact on your mental and emotional health as if you live in an F state.
Right.
Okay. So the inequality, having equality in the family court system, reduces that negative impact, which is good for corporations because it has less impact on job performance, right?
Right.
Which would be of interest to any business because we're talking, and funny thing is, I broke it down, and I'm going to be analyzing this data for 2 years at least, and because there's so many different angles it can be broke down. But I compared just on the surface Arizona, which is an A minus, to New York, because I had over 100 responses from both states, and the impact to men's mental and emotional health was a lot less in Arizona as compared to New York, which is an F. But what I didn't expect to see is that the mental and emotional impact to women, mothers, was less in Arizona as well, even though they have the advantage in New York.
Right.
So now that we've cleaned up our image, we reorganized, we've gotten consistent with our branding. We have, media broadcast multiple times a week. We take this research, the pilot study, write grant applications to these corporations to get funding. Now, the funding, what that does is it makes us more capable to raise awareness, to develop programs, to help fathers. And I want to make this clear that this is not just a U.S. issue. This is a worldwide issue. So I've just now started with a team, 3 other researchers, that we're going to do the same study. We have to modify it a bit for what we're focusing on, but we're going to do it on an international level.
Wow.
So I know some of the top countries that we have, our organization has a following in is Australia, South Africa, Canada, and then I'm interested in getting some stuff in South America as well. Um, so we're going to, see if the data is consistent between, the different states in the U.S. and then internationally as well. Because then we're talking international corporations, but more so than that is, as I said in the beginning, the United Nations defines gender bias as a violation of human rights. So there is a UN grant that if I can establish that this is a worldwide thing, that's the grant that we're going after. And if we can win that grant and substantiate our case and get corporate backing to develop programs, I mean, yeah, we're going to be making leaps and bounds in a short period of time.
Absolutely.
Some of the programs I know, we're partnering with an organization called Fetch, which is run by Dwight Stitt, and what they do is, they do camping type things, canoeing, where children go with the fathers for a period of time, weekends, things like that, to develop, to make up, to reunify and develop bonds that they didn't have the opportunity to before.
Right.
Programs like that. We're working with the Equal Shared Parenting Benefits Program, which is working on developing a nationwide network of services that promote and facilitate healthy shared parenting, mediation services, co-parenting applications, counseling for children. Right now it includes zero copay telehealth, which to a lot of people, maybe doesn't mean a whole lot. But, for a young father, 21, 22, working in construction or, in a part-time or even a full-time job that doesn't have health insurance, that could be something. It might even fulfill the state's requirement for, if they are required to pay or provide some type of health care for their child.
Right. And I know
it might fulfill that.
Yeah, and I know right now, as far as the doctor visits, a lot of doctor's offices are doing that right now. Mine is. I can't even go into mine. I had to pay a $30 copay just to tell the guy I was sick.
So here's the thing. So this program, it's $40 a month, $35 if you buy the annual thing, and there's zero copay.
So pay for itself.
It's already cheaper.
Yep.
You can go to in-person doctor visits as well for a discount. You get discounts to prescriptions, at the pharmacy. It includes discounts to Disney World, Universal, which, that sounds great. If I could get to see my kids, well, some people do. And when you do, they're trying to just add value however they can. Right. Now, I know some of the things that they're working on is they're going to be including in what's not already included, but enhanced mental health care. So counseling services and stuff like that, as well as prepaid included some at least minimal legal services. Right. And some of those legal services, I know that they spoke with the network that they're working with is not so much because it's not so much designed for high conflict divorces and custody battles, but if you can get, what they're going to start doing is pushing it towards mediation, keep it out of court, because that's where you can negotiate. Because if you go to a judge, you're going to get what you're going to get. Yeah. There's no negotiation.
Whatever he wants to give you. Yep.
So those are some of the things that, that program's working on putting together, and, the corporations as well, they can get in Dove, General Motors, if they can get a thing in there for, $5,000 rebate, if you're a part of this program, hey, great, whatever value they can add in there, because the more people that join this program, it's also, the name of the program, Equal Shared Parenting Benefits Program. So it also promotes equal shared parenting, even if it just, in awareness. And the thing is you don't have to be a parent to join. You can, be just somebody that supports equal shared parenting, or somebody that needs, hey, I need zero copay telehealth or whatever. Anybody can join. It's a lot like a AAA or an AARP.
Got you.
But all the funds go towards supporting and advocating for equal shared parenting.
Heck yeah. That's awesome, man. I look forward to see how big that grows. I really am.
Yeah, there's a lot of work. I know that one of the issues that they're having is on the back end with developing a portal that the partners can go in and verify that yes, they're an active member or not. There's costs to that. So as they get funds, they're growing it as quickly as they can.
That's awesome. It is,
So
man.
we got a lot of things that we're working on, and partners we're working with. Um, Media. That's one of the biggest ways to educate people
Absolutely.
worldwide. And as technically a worldwide organization, the Father's Rights Movement, there's no reason we can't be pumping out content 24 hours a day.
Absolutely. I agree with you. 100%. I said, man, it's so big. It's so big.
And it is. It's a worldwide issue.
Absolutely.
And I think it was a natural evolution. I mean, from back in the day, men went to work, women stayed home, took care of the kids. The past 100 years, women entered the workforce, and the law of supply and demand. There's only so many jobs. So the more women that enter the workforce, the less jobs there are for men, or the more competitive it is.
Right.
So inevitably, men's roles, as women give up childcare and opt for daycare and things like that, men's roles in the home and with children has to evolve as well.
Absolutely.
And the first step is, yeah, absolutely. The laws in the different states and countries, and making sure that they're equal. And we're not asking the courts to place children with uh, parents that would put them in danger or anything like that. Just when you go to court, start at 50-50. And if there's a reason to go one way or another, well, so be it. But start at 50-50.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you 100% there, man. I know so many dads that get the every other weekend top spill, man, and it sucks. I mean, it really
Well,
does.
and here's the thing: is I have a friend. He went through divorce, and they did it all out of court and everything. And he told me he got the every other weekend, um, on paper. So, that's what he pays his child support for. But he has the kids pretty much every night, so she can go out and party. And it's her second or third divorce like this. So she's making a heck of a paycheck off of the different, child support checks that she's got.
Oh
And he
man,
was happy to pay that child support just to be able to see his kids.
right. That's me, man. That's something that's never been an issue for me is the child support. My oldest son's with a previous ex, and the child support's never been an issue for me. I'll pay you whatever you want. Just let me see my kid more
I
than
don't,
so many days in a
yeah,
month.
yeah, I know it's an issue for many people. It's not an issue that I address, at least not at the moment, because if we get a rebuttable presumption of 50-50 and we fix that inequality, that'll fix a lot of the problems with the child support too.
Oh yeah, no,
So
absolutely.
rather than arguing all the points all at once, I'm more concerned about the one that will give us the biggest impact on everything else, the root cause analysis, and it's the equality.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, man, I know so many guys that are just great dads, and I've got some friends that have the best relationships, ever with their, exes, where they split time 50-50. Some don't pay child support, some just helps out, and that's a
And that's
unicorn.
great.
That's a unicorn,
Yeah,
man. That's what I call it. I was like,
it
man,
is.
that is a unicorn. And I've also got so many friends that are just great dads, man. They just get put through the ringer. And
Yep.
and that's one thing that really stood out to me the most about you guys is father's rights movement. Like I was instantly just like I gotta check this out,
Well,
because
let me explain though, because there's always been a discussion about the name.
right,
It's offensive, and actually one time when we were restructuring some of our back end systems, I went on Upwork because there were a few things that, like, I'm pretty proficient with Salesforce, but there were some specific things I wanted done. I just didn't have time at the moment to figure out how to do. So I went on Upwork, and I found about 5-10 people that looked like they had the skills to help out, and I send them an invite. All right, that's how it works. And I would say probably roughly half, if not more, were women. And the very first response I got was from a woman, and she goes, I only responded because I was so dumbfounded that you would actually invite a woman to do this job. Your organization is obviously against women. Well, that's not the case at all.
Right.
But the name, to some people might suggest that. But let me, make it clear that the reason the name is the Father's Rights Movement, other than the fact that that's what it was named in the beginning, but the reason that it remains the Father's Rights Movement is, as I think we operate a crisis hotline that people can call in and they can talk to other fathers that have been through this, that know what they're going through, maybe offer them advice or just, an ear to listen. And, when people hit that point of despair and panic and everything, that their world's falling apart and they're losing, the most precious thing to them, their children, they don't go on Google and Google National Parents Organization. They don't go online and Google, any of these other things. They Google Father's Rights. And so it's an SEO thing. So that way, when people need help, we make it ourselves easy for them to find us because we know what they go out and search for. And they reach our hotline and we've got one of these other shows that we have, State of the Family Courts, each week going to a different state to talk about the nuances of family law in that specific state and answer questions on things that people can do. And then at the end of the 50 states that we go through, guess what? 52 weeks, we just start over again and we can see the natural progression.
That's awesome.
Now we as an organization, we aren't set up to help individual cases. There are people in the organization that have a lot of experience or connections that do talk and offer, advice and things like that. But, we're not attorneys. We don't go to court and things like that. One of the things we are working on developing in collaboration with other organizations to give it more weight is something called an amicus curiae, which is a letter justifying, our position when it comes to custody battles. And it's given to the court as a friend of the court, not on one person's behalf or another. So no names or anything like that, just as an organization. And we want to make that publicly available for anybody to use. We've originally had somebody request that out of Albania.
Oh, wow.
Got a guy in Albania. He is looking for an exception to their laws to be able to get 20% access to his child, which is unheard of in Albania, let alone 50%.
Right. Wow.
So while the U.S. is, we're talking 50-50 and stuff like that. Other parts of the country, that's not even on the table yet.
I couldn't imagine 20%. What is the national average right now? Or you'd say percentage wise?
79% of cases goes to the mother being the custodial parent.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Now, so I guess it'd be pretty much 80-20 in a sense, -1.
Yeah, pretty much. It was. I mean, it's moved like in the past year or two. It's moved like I think 2%,
right,
from 81 down to 79. But you look at Argentina. Until recently, Argentina, if the child was 7 years or younger, there wasn't even a court hearing. The child went with the mother.
Oh, wow.
So there wasn't even a chance to voice anything. The father had no rights at all.
That would be hard. I couldn't imagine that. That right there would just make a man go stir crazy. Stir crazy. I know it would me. That's a good way to get me going from 0 to 100. Real quick.
I know there's a story, and I've not been able to find it, where back in the Roman time that somebody invaded a city because something happened to their child.
Right.
And to me, that doesn't seem beyond what would what's due if that were to happen.
Seems justified to me,
Granted, in modern day society, we have to do things a certain way before we get to that level of escalation. But for my children, I go to all ends of the earth.
Oh yeah, same here. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll be right back after a message from our sponsor.
Gentlemen, many times we realize how we're not used to be. We have fatigue, we have weight gain, even if we're dieting and exercising like we're supposed to. And for many men, pills and prescriptions aren't working anymore for their ED. At Men's Wellness of North Alabama, we take the time to hear your concerns and get to the root of the problem, and we offer solutions. Call today for your free consult. Let's talk man to man and fix it. 256-366-2470 or men's-wellness.com.
And we're back, man. That's one thing that I kind of want to touch bases on a little bit is the testosterone. As far as being a man and just overall quality of life, I'm on testosterone.
Well, it's not just testosterone. Levels of estrogen, cortisol, stress. There's a study, and I couldn't tell you where to go find it, but I've read it, that, once you become a father, your testosterone production drops because of the hormones with the mother and the caring of the baby, and just everything kind of, changes for the men as well. And it's not that your testosterone levels will necessarily drop to an unsafe level, but it definitely gives opportunity for more of that dad bod.
Oh, yeah.
And there are optimal levels that if you talk to somebody like at
Men's Wellness.
Men's Wellness of North Alabama, they can tell you what those optimal levels are. It helps. I know you take it. I have been doing stuff like this for years. Physically, energy, your focus, physically managing stress, it helps with so much stuff.
It does. And that's one thing I've noticed, is other than, the energy, just I don't know, it's like a peace of mind in a sense. Just the focus that you have on certain things, man. It's what's really helped me with this podcast, and I talk about it all the time. It really helped me focus the time that I needed, on this versus, like I said, I'm 31. And I've told you before, I'm 31 years old, so never in a million years would I thought, my testosterone levels were low. My buddy finally talked me into going and getting checked out, and I did. And it was 3 times lower than what it was supposed to be. And I was just like, shit.
What happened with me is when I first got checked out, I got checked out out of curiosity. I don't even remember. Like, I had a friend that was an RN that worked at one of the places. I said, hey, let's see what it does, And one of the things that happened is they checked my cortisol, which is not even something anybody thinks about.
Right.
And when they got the results back, they called me and they're like, how do you get out of bed in the morning? Because the cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning. Right. It's goes with your diet and everything, and it wakes you up to say, hey, go eat. Right. And that's why when you get your cortisol tested, you have to go first thing in the morning without eating and everything, because that's when it's the highest. And mine was so low, like they literally didn't know how I was able to roll out of bed in the morning. And I said, well, it's a process. Meanwhile, I'm on active duty in the Army as a single dad and a 2-year-old. So that process was it was tough, but you can't be late for formation. I'll be there. And then, my just discipline, got me through whatever shortages I had. But, upon, I had to do, what was the thing that they prescribed me? Cortisol? No, they prescribed me something that you wouldn't think you'd normally, it's cortisol cream, but in a pill. Oh. And I had to take that, cortisone, that's what it is, cortisone. And I had to take that to get my levels back up. And it became much easier. And it's just a one-time thing. It's not something like, it's like to shock your system. But definitely, if you're tired, can't focus, before a 5-hour energy or anything like that, definitely, go get it checked out, learn about it. Because, your physical, how you feel physically affects how you are mentally as well.
Absolutely.
And, as fathers, there's a lot of stress. I've got a 4-year-old that takes a lot of energy, a little bit more attention than a 13-year-old, but a lot more energy.
Oh, yeah.
And, so, I started doing it not for myself. I started doing it for my daughter because I want to be there. I want to be present. I want to be active because that affects her development.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's how it impacts those around us as well. I will tell you this: my father, I did not know this until I was older and started, taking treatment. He had a heart attack at 50.
Oh, wow.
He was diagnosed with low testosterone when he was like 30, but never took any treatment because I guess it was new.
Right.
One of the major causes of having low testosterone and not getting it treated is heart attack.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't know that.
So if you go and get treatment and you're, just get checked out, and if you have it, you're increasing your chance of heart attack as well as many other things that come with it.
Absolutely. And like I said, man, it significantly changed my life to where I was at, to where I am as far as the way I feel. Like I said, it was 3 times lower than what it was supposed to be. And man, I ain't even going to lie to you. When it finally, it finally started working, man, I felt like Superman. I really did. I just had the energy that I ain't never had before. And a lot of men, and I mean even women's got low testosterone. Have symptoms from low testosterone as well. Same thing as a man does,
Right.
but their levels are
Or,
just
or low
minuscule.
estrogen or higher estrogen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's just minuscule compared to a man's. But man, it was just crazy how better you feel. And a lot of people, they just chalk it up as getting old.
And it's true.
Right.
But here's the other thing: a lot of it is diet,
Yep.
the chemicals that they put in the food environment. And for those watching that don't know anything about it, there is a big difference between the testosterone that people go to the gym every day take, which is anabolic, steroids, and androgenic. Androgenic is a direct testosterone replacement, and it's managed at very closely to keep it at an optimal level, not to overjuice or anything like that.
Yeah. It's not to go to the gym and get all roided
It's
up.
not going to hurt though. It'll
Right.
give you the
It does
energy. It'll
help.
give you the recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to make you a beast or um,
Yeah.
any pimples on your back or anything like that.
Yeah, nice 6 pack, roid rage, anything like that. Though I did notice, like starting off, I was a little bit more assertive of a person,
Maybe, yeah,
a little bit
yeah.
more
I
assertive
mean,
of
it's
a person.
testosterone,
Yeah,
but it's not an anabolic. It's not horse horse testosterone or
yeah.
anything like that.
No, absolutely, man. But anyways, back to the fathers' rights movement, man. Like I said, I respect everything that y'all do. Like, what are some of the things that y'all have accomplished as a movement so far?
That we've accomplished, I oversee more so the structure and the direction of the overall organization.
Right.
So I don't deal directly with a lot of our followers and things like that. But I do know that the ones that have, Kenneth Rosa, he hosts our TFRM live on Wednesdays. He gets messages all the time of fathers who have finally made it through it, or have gotten encouragement to continue fighting. And one of the things we're wanting to do is we're wanting to educate people. Facebook, and social media, the algorithms that they have, when you post something, it shows it to people who are most likely to want to see the same thing.
Right.
So you get a group of people that are concerned about one thing, and they just are talking to each other. It never gets out beyond that without some specific tactics. So, our goal in the past year, we have done a lot, is we took a hit in our followers last fall because they furloughed a bunch of volunteers and stuff like that. But we've since not only made it back to the number of followers and supporters that we had, but grew an extra 30,000 and are still growing. And we're using new avenues of media to educate people outside of the small circle that is, shared family shared parenting. And I think that's important because I talk to some people and they're like, man, I didn't even know this was an issue.
Right.
And nobody ever does until it happens to them.
Yeah.
When I went through my divorce and separation, okay, whatever, we'll do this. And I moved closer so that I could, be involved as much as possible in everything. I had no ill will or anything like that. And then out of the blue, I have no idea where my daughter's at for 4 or 5 months. I'm going to court, all this kind of stuff. She's filing for 100% custody. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I never saw it coming. And when we went to court, I was like, okay, well, I'll go to court. I'll tell the truth, and it'll be 50-50, and we'll move on.
Don't work that way.
It does not work that way. It does not work that way. And so one of our biggest goals is to educate people that it is an issue, and they can vote for equality, as well as, providing information and services to those that do come across the issue, to help them through it. And one of the biggest things, and I'm speaking, from my personal experience, that I think can be the most helpful, because at least for me, when I got into this, like I said, I figured I'll go to court, I'll tell the truth and get 50-50, and we'll go about our day. That'll be the end of it. Well, that wasn't the case in the first round. And then the second round took 2 years. So it was 2.5 years. And so that my mindset in the beginning was, okay, we'll go to court, we'll do this and get 50-50 and go on our way. So I'm setting this expectation, and then that expectation is not met, and you get angry.
Oh yeah.
And you start saying, well, this and this and then this is how it's going to, and that aggression and anger and despair and panic comes out. And it works against you, because it's almost as if they set that stuff up to get a reaction out of you to use against you.
Oh.
And that's, what attorneys do. They say stuff that's just so outlandish that you're going to blow up. And then look, see, he's scary. He's making threats, or he's doing this. He's irrational. And that's how it, the court system is set up to be, adversarial. But what I found after that first round is I had to come to the realization that this was going to be my daughter was 2 at the time, that this was going to be a 16-year ordeal until my daughter was 18. And everything, so I move a pawn, they move a knight. And I say, okay, well, they're playing that card now, but I'm playing the long game.
Right. And
in thinking that way, I wasn't as reactionary. I was able to better, it was, I'm not going to say it was easy. When it goes on for that long, it takes a toll on you mentally and emotionally. And, as I kind of mentioned to you off the air, the only way I was able to get through it is because of my time in the military, my ability to compartmentalize. I looked at everything as a strategy. Okay, they did this, but this, and it gets very exhausting in the things that you have to do. But once I think I told you off air too, in June, I ended up getting 50-50 custody. Uncompartmentalizing, because you start structuring your entire day like that, and if you have other children, here's some of the things that I used to have to contend. I had she's 13 now, but she was, 10 to 13 throughout this whole ordeal and with me. And meanwhile, I'm a wreck.
Right.
But I have another child that I have to be present for, and I have to be okay for. So I couldn't ever show that. It came through. There's no way for it not to come through. But you can't forget about the other child, neglect the other child and their needs for their development and things like that. But, it was hard for me to go anywhere with my, family, my parents, my daughter, and do something and enjoy it without feeling guilty, that I was having fun and enjoying something without my other daughter being there. So it completely, has the capability of splitting you as a person.
Right. I believe. Go ahead.
I would say, my friend Dwight Stitt he was on one of our shows a few weeks ago. He runs the Fetch organization. we're talking about the testosterone and hormones and, physical, wellness, but the mental wellness, is it's almost more important, because when you do finally see your children and when you're going through all this, you have to respond accordingly, not overreact in ways that, or say things that they're going to use against you. But you also have to be whole as a person when when you finally are able to see your children.
Yeah.
Make and be a person that they want to be around, not just pointing blame at the mom. I mean, you got to understand that, anything that they're told while you're being separated or alienated from them,
question. They're getting
well,
90 question.
that's their entire reality.
Yep.
They don't know any different than what they're being told, and it's not their fault.
Right.
That's just what they know. They don't get to hear the other side of it. So that's when when you're finally able to see them, and definitely don't try and bombard them with, well, this happened and she did this and stuff like that, because now, while yes, you think, well, my child needs to know, at the same time, you're bombarding and attacking their entire reality that they've known up to this point. Mm-hmm. And at that point, for the children, whether it's been a year or 5 years, and that's another story, but that child either has to make a decision. There's a lot of pressure on them. Well, do I accept this new reality and what this person's telling me, which means that my other parent has been lying to me and doing very bad things, who is the person that's my caregiver? Or do I reject this person and what they're telling me and stay with the reality that I have? And the victims ultimately are the children. But, I've seen a lot of shows, I've seen a lot of people talking, and I've never really seen people talk about that specifically, from the child's perspective. They're hearing all this stuff and it's not the truth and they need to know the truth. That's, what I hear about. But from the child's perspective, I mean, that's their reality.
Right.
And it's not their battle.
It's not. It's not as much as you want your kids to know this or that. It's really best to leave them completely out of it, in a sense, just because, like I said, I believe the mental part of it is 10 times harder than the physical part of it, honestly. From my personal experience, man, it was one of the most challenging mental battles that I've ever encountered in my life.
Ice ball in my chest. Yeah. And I just, like, I couldn't breathe. Oh, it's
rough. It's hard. And there's nothing in life that I've done that could even amount to the stress and the feelings that you get of having to battle for your kid.
There's something, I've said this a few times, is when you go through this, and I've been through it, and I could make an argument all day long that I'm a victim because of what happened. Right. And sure, I'm a victim if you want to package it that way, but I don't see myself as a victim. Right. I'm a father. And my sole duty as a father is to do anything and endure anything I need to for the best interest of my children. So if I had to do this fight for another, for 16 years or what have you, I that's my duty as a father. Even if if I had to take the 16 years rather than forcing it in 6 months, to make the smart move, that's what I had to do. Even if I'm the one that's suffering, because, in my situation, my daughter was safe physically. Mentally, given, certain things, maybe not, and the thing that broke my heart the most and gave me my biggest drive is I don't ever want either of my daughters for even one moment to question that or think that their father doesn't love them.
Yep.
So And that's what killed me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a tough subject. Like we're talking about this, and I've just got so many different thoughts going through my head from past, experiences for me, and some stuff that my friends are going through. Man, it's rough, and
I will
it's
say
rough.
for me, I think one of the best things that I was able to do, aside from, how I approached it mentally, um, after that first courts iteration, which was about 4 months long, 4.5 months long, I was able to set up regular FaceTime calls. And at first she was like, okay, well, we'll do this like once a week or something like that. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm going to call every day. And she was like, okay, 5 minutes. I said, no, 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 no. I said, as long as she's engaged, that's how long I want to stay on the phone.
Right.
If it's 1 minute and she says, I'm playing and I don't want to talk today, okay. Because I'm not, yes, I want to talk to her, but I'm not calling just for me.
Right.
I'm calling so that she knows my daddy calls every day. My daddy is there. And, if I choose not to talk to him, that's okay. But my daddy is there for me no matter what.
Right.
Even if it's through FaceTime, he's there. And so for every day for 2 years, we FaceTimed. And some days, man, she'd be engaged and be so excited and tell me stories for an hour. And some days, I don't want to talk today. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's normal. That's normal. That's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of men don't understand is you only can capture your kid's mind.
They get offended. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been guilty of it before. When I was younger, and it kind of just like, man, it kind of aggravates me because I really want to talk to them, really want to know how much I love them. But then as you get older and you get mature a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, it's kind of hard to keep a 4-year-old's attention, or whatever the case may be. But yeah,
but you got to remember the reason you're calling is for them.
Yep.
Just, I mean, how invaluable is it just for them to know? I know my dad's going to call me tomorrow.
Right.
And that way, when you do see your child, you already have that trust built.
Right.
So they talk about reunification and all that kind of stuff. You already have that bond, that trust. You're not a stranger to that person because they know, oh, that's my dad. He's going to call me every day.
Right. It is, man. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
My older daughter, I don't know if I've told you this before or not. When her mother and I split up, she told me, she goes, I think she should stay with you, which really was off-putting to me when she said that. I was like, of course, I'm not going to say no, but I had a business at the time. I was working 100 hours a week. I had no insurance. And so what I did, it was right after 2008, the market was bad and everything, is I sold off the contracts that I had and left my daughter with my parents. And I took the contract as, a contractor back in Afghanistan. I was like, I'll go there for 3 months. I'll make a bunch of money in those 3 months. I'll come back and, like $40,000 to $60,000 in 3 months. And I'll come back and I'll have a little bit of money while I find a job. I called my daughter, and this is 2008. Technology is not like what it is today.
Right.
I called my daughter every single day via Skype so she could hear my voice and see my face. She wasn't even a year old at that point. She was 9 months old. And when I came home, she was at my parents' house. I walked in and she was on the playmat in front of the TV, kind of looking up at the TV, but she's got her toys around her, had her back to me. And I just laid down on my stomach on the playmat and just kind of laid there quietly until she looked over and recognized me. I'll tell you what, man, 9 months old. I've been gone for 8 weeks. Her face had the biggest smile. It turned beet red. Her eyes teared up. She knew exactly who I was.
That's awesome.
And, a child at that age isn't supposed to have that type of memory,
Right. Kids are smarter than what you give them credit for.
They are. They
really
are. My older one, when she was younger, I used to be able to give her any explanation I wanted about something. And she'd be like, oh, okay. She might not understand it, but she'd be like, oh, okay. My younger one now, no. If it doesn't make sense, she's like, I don't know. She questions me on it. And I'm like, Urgh.
And it's different how each kid is. My oldest and youngest are night and day like you. My oldest one, he kind of is just, he's pretty gullible. and to some extent, he's getting a little better. My youngest one, just like yours, man. You can't tell him shit. Like,
My older one, when she was younger, it was the funniest thing. She would be crying about something. I mean, she's not hurt or anything, and I'd look at her and be like, "Hey, there's no crying in baseball." And she was so confused by it that she stopped crying. She's like, "There's no crying in baseball?" Like, no, you can't cry in baseball. Off of that movie with Tom Hanks.
yeah.
Yeah, and she was so confused that she stopped crying. She's like, "Okay," so she stopped crying.
Oh man. It is, man. That's one thing I enjoy most of anything is being a dad. And like I said, if you have more than one kid, I just the for me the personality trait differences between both of
Oh
them.
yeah,
It's fun.
and
I think that's one of the
well, I
best
love.
qualities you can have as a dad is being adaptable, being able to adapt to your situation, your environments with each of your kids. Man, it's awesome.
Yeah, um, I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, I love watching them when they figure out something new. Doesn't matter how big it is, but just like, oh, okay, yeah, this goes there, man. I love that.
Right.
And then they turn into teenagers, and it's like, oh, and somebody asked me, oh, do you want to get this for your daughter? No, she's 13. She's not going to like anything that I get her, so I'll just save the money. I can get her. She could point at something and say, that's what I want. I get it for her, and she's not going to like it. So.
Absolutely, man. I do. I enjoy it, man. I sure do appreciate you being on here. It's been
No, I appreciate it.
it's been fun. I look to have you on here a few more times, guys. And if you have not heard of the Fathers' Rights Movement, I strongly suggest you check it out. They're doing a lot of great things, got a lot of great things going, and just continuing to snowball to bigger and better and awesome things. And I look forward to
And
being a
there's
part of it. I might not be able to give legal advice, but I can sure talk about them badass kids, how
well,
tough it
there's
is.
there's so many aspects to it.
Right.
Because yes, we believe that the laws should be equal, rebuttable presumption of 50-50. But at the same time, we all know that there's a lot of fathers out there that have some stepping up to do.
Absolutely.
Mothers too.
Yep.
Just because they're a mother doesn't mean that they're the, world's greatest parent either.
Right.
So, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. I just, even me, I mean, I used to get with my older daughter, because I was on active duty with the military. Oh my God, you're such a great dad. Only thing I could ever think was I could be better. I could have more time. I could be more present. I could be more patient.
Right.
So nobody's perfect, but
Absolutely.
I want to say being consistent. Like I said, I call my daughter every day, just so that she knows that I'm there, and doing things like that. That your child is and feels safe, and that they have someone to go to talk to. They feel comfortable talking to them, and sharing things. Or if there's a problem, they know, okay, if I go to my dad, I might get in trouble because I screwed up,
Right.
but my dad's got my back, So, and I just, as human beings and as parents, we just need to do better,
Yep.
Because if there wasn't an issue, there wouldn't, in the humans being and parents thing, there wouldn't be an issue with the equality thing in court system.
Absolutely. I personally believe a kid needs their father just as much as they need their mother.
I think that both parents should be as involved in their children's lives as much as logistically possible.
Yep.
If one parent lives in New York and the other in California, obviously you're going to run into issues for certain things. Technology nowadays, there's no excuses for at least some level of involvement,
Right.
and permitting the other parent to be involved as well.
Yeah. And that's something I've got so much respect for these couples that co-parent very well. You see these pictures of mom, dad, stepmom, stepdad, with the kids at baseball
Yep.
games or school functions. Like that is goals. That is what I believe to be the best setting for a kid.
I mean, can you imagine being that kid?
Yeah.
How loved that kid must feel
Oh yeah, absolutely.
versus people fighting all the time. And that's an emotional maturity evolution thing, and we'll get there.
Yeah.
You know,
And even
but
people as individuals, they'll get there. I'm not saying that every parent or every relationship is going to be like that, because it takes a little bit of maturity, especially in the beginning. And that's the thing with me and my oldest. Is we started off we hated each other pretty good. And then as time's going on, I'm married, she's, in a relationship, and like, heck, I talk to him more than I do her. We talk about football, cut up, and we're at games and stuff. And I look forward to, expanding that relationship. And it's just so much easier that way.
And, yeah. And here's the thing, and why it's so important is children learn from what they see and what we do. We could tell them, okay, don't do this, but if we're doing it, that's what they're going to learn. Yep. So if we're fighting, alienating, talking bad about the other parent, making things difficult, that's what they're going to do as adults.
Yep. You make it the normal. I mean, monkey see, monkey do,
Yep.
It's just, it's going to teach them how love is in their, perspective of how you love, your spouse or partner or whatever.
And a lot of that, is people get angry and butt hurt and try and control things, all based on having bad expectations, which they set themselves.
Right.
If somebody's not going to follow through on something that they're saying because of the history,
right.
Don't set the expectation that they're going to follow through when they say something. Oh, I'm really going to do it this time. We'll see. Everybody knows you don't lend money to a friend. If you do, don't expect to see it back.
Right.
If you expect to see it back, you're going to get angry when you don't get it back. If you don't expect to see it back, well, guess what? You're just going to be happy if you do.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
it's all about expectations and mindset and how you look at things.
Absolutely.
And that goes for parenting too, and co-parenting.
Absolutely. Well, again, man, you got anything else you want to highlight on the father's
I think that's about it. I have to save some stuff for the future shows.
For the future, absolutely. Well, man, again, I do appreciate
and I can't think of anything else at the moment. So we've gone down quite a path.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I said again, man, I do appreciate you coming on here, and I do look forward to being a part, a voice for the father's rights movement, a personality per se.
You're on the page. I just got to get your playlist up there.
Awesome, man. I've got my own little unique experiences I can bring in as far as dad life goes. May not be able to give the best legal advice. I can give you my my situation on some things, but hey, it's more than just the legal stuff being a dad. It's tough being a dad, and sometimes you got to be tough to be a dad, and that's just in life situations.
But you know what? That's, as fathers, that's our job.
Absolutely.
Enduring anything we need to.
Yes, sir. Well, again,
throughout history, we've been warriors, we've been protectors. Being a father is no different.
Absolutely. Well, again, Mr. Sowers, I do appreciate you being on here, and
thank you, sir.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Dad Tough. If you liked the episode, don't forget to like and follow the Dad Tough podcast on Facebook and YouTube. You can also listen to every episode on all major platforms. Have an interest in being on the show or want advertising? Reach out by email at dadtoughpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, guys, stay Dad Tough.